Make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Navalny's death. Putin is responsible. What has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality.
President Biden today, as you heard, quick to blame Russian President Vladimir Putin for the sudden death of this man, Alexey Navalny. Navalny was Putin's fiercest opponent. Russian authorities saying he died in a Russian prison. We are still waiting to learn the details about his death. But today, people were paying their respects to Navalny in Moscow and all over the world, in London, Berlin, gatherings to honor Navalny and others who spoke out against Putin's corruption. This, by the way, was President Biden 3 years ago in Geneva.
What did you say would happen if opposition leader Alexey Navalny dies?
I made it clear to him that I believe the consequences of that would be devastating for Russia. I'll go back to the same point. What do you think happens when he's saying it's not about hurting Navalny, this, all the stuff he says to rationalize the treatment of Navalny, and then he dies in prison? I pointed out to him that it matters a great deal when a country, in fact...
President Biden asked about that very statement this afternoon.
That was 3 years ago. In the meantime, they faced a hell of a lot of consequences. They've lost and or had wounded over 350,000 Russian soldiers. They've remained in a position where they've been subjected to great sanctions across the board, and we're contemplating what else could be done. But what we were talking about at the time, there were no actions being taken against Russia. And that's, look, all that's transpired since then.
Navalny's death coming just a month before that election that will most likely give Putin 6 more years in power. Alexey Navalny was 47 years old. And as you think about Navalny, consider this: 452 days. That is how long American husband, father, and teacher Marc Fogel has been in prison in Russia. He was arrested in August of 2021, accused of having prescribed medical cannabis with him at the airport. He was then sentenced to 14 years in prison near Moscow. And Ann Fogel joins us now. She is Marc's sister, and she, along with other family members and friends, have been fighting for his safe return for more than 2 years. And Ann, always good to see you. Let's talk about Marc. When's the last time you heard from him, and do we know how he's doing?
Thank you for having me. Yes, I talk to Marc regularly. He doesn't ever talk about himself. I think I've said that before. I don't think that he would ever tell me the exact situation that he's in for fear of punishment, really.
And
so,
the death.
I don't really know.
Yeah, the death of Alexey Navalny, gut punch to everyone. You could almost feel it. It was a palpable sense going all the way across the country. What was your reaction to news of his death?
Deep sadness. Deep sadness, and of course, even more worry if men in their prime are dying in prisons in Russia. A man of 62, almost 63, with a great many health problems, isn't going to fare well. So I'm doubly worried about my brother. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop.
The president today pointing out just how many sanctions have been leveled against Vladimir Putin since the war in Ukraine began. Also with the abduction of Evan Gerskovich, who was also being held, and others being held inside Russian prisons. It almost appears that aside from declaring war, is there anything the United States can do to secure the release of your brother and the others?
Well, it doesn't appear so at this point in time. Certainly, I'm hoping that President Putin will want to show a more humanitarian face before his election and release those that he has in prison, including my brother. That remains to be seen.
It's well known that Vladimir Putin wants a German prisoner to be released. Talk to us about that, and talk to, I guess, the American public about why you think that should happen.
Well, I don't know what what ability we have to make that transaction, as he's held in Germany. The crime was committed in Germany. It was a murder that happened in broad daylight, I believe in a park. I just don't think that we have much of a leg to stand on, or the State Department doesn't.
And is there a day that goes by that you don't find yourself wondering whether this is simply a terrible nightmare and one day your brother will walk in the door and say it was all a dream?
I can tell you that it's with me 24 hours a day. I wake up, I go to sleep, and throughout the day, I wonder how we're going to do this. It is just the most monstrous task, and it grinds on and on.
And final question, in the years that your brother has been held, America's attitude towards Vladimir Putin and also Russia seems to be changing. You're nodding your head. Speak to those members on Capitol Hill, those members of the media who think that there's nothing to see here.
I don't understand this change in attitude. It would seem that we want to. The democracy is messy, and there are times that I think that people think that a more simplistic, authoritarian relationship might be the thing to do. It's frightening. It's really very frightening to think that we have admirers in this country of Vladimir Putin.
And thank you for being frank. I know the tightrope that you walk between not wanting to criticize the State Department because you want to get your brother back, not wanting to criticize people on Capitol Hill because you want to get your brother back, and yet these are the hard truths that we live with. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Ann Fogel, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. We'll be right back. Stay with us.